Welcome to Immigration Insights with Abir Amin. This is a special edition. We're in the midst of H2B visa season right now, and so we're taking a special edition to really dig in a little deeper to what exactly is going on with this whole process. So welcome, Abir. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jim. Hi, everyone.
All right. So the H2B visa immigration window just closed. So January 1st through January 3rd was the submission timeline for applications to be put in for H2B visa workers. Of course, that has just recently passed. And on the 4th, an important announcement was sent out regarding the applications and how many were received and all of those things. And so do we have any of the details that that the Department of Labor put out for how many applications there were, how many applicants, any of that kind of information?
So just want to kind of backtrack a little bit. The H2B visa is not closed, but the first phase for the H2B visa, which you stated correctly, is closed. It closed just a few days ago. And now I think if they did release, Department of Labor released information, they have all the data. From last year, there has been an increase for, I think, about 4 to 5%. And total, they got a request for certifications, for H2B certifications from employers, from their representatives, from their recruiters, if they don't have any attorneys or, representative, about like 142,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So obviously, not all of those are going to be accepted. So that's a lot more than H2B visa allows for. So
exactly.
What happens? I mean, how does this get processed? Since obviously not all of those are going to get approved. How does the Department of Labor determine the order of these applications? Because that's a lot of applications to come in a 2 or 3 day window.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely overwhelming for the certifying officers. It's kind of nerve-wracking for the attorneys and for the employers because everyone is hoping to get picked. So unfortunately, it's a random order. It's a random pickup of an application. What it means is we're in the first phase of the process, right? In the certification process. So we go ahead from January 1st to January 3rd. We all went ahead and submitted our ETA 9142 application for temporary employment. And now the Department of Labor got those applications, we submitted it, and they did a lottery system randomization, that's the call. And they assigned all the applications to different groups, corresponding to each letter. So now we have group A, group B, group C, group D, all the way to group H. I think that's where they ended it. So all the employers and all the petitions that were filed on behalf of employers have now been officially assigned to a group letter.
Okay, so they're all assigned to groups, and so did they just do that by random? Is that how that's decided?
Yes.
Okay.
It's completely random. It doesn't matter if you had your 9142 application submitted at 12 midnight on December 31st on New Year's Eve or on January 3rd, which is the last day. It can be, you can be the first one to submit the application, the last one, and that doesn't dictate if you're going to be assigned to group A versus to group H.
Okay, got it. And so I'm assuming group A is first, group B, is that the significance of what group you're in?
Yes. So what they're doing is they're saying all the applications that are assigned to group A, Department of Labor, when I say they will go ahead and focus on them and see if they're qualified or if they're legitimate for temporary certification, right? Because right now we were trying to get the golden ticket to the H2B visa is getting that temporary certification. As long as your ETA 9142 is certified, you're good to go. That's the first phase of the process. So they will go ahead and assess all the temporary applications and see if they meet the requirements of temporary employment as described under the regulations, or if they do meet the requirement, but they have certain deficiency, and then they will decide to issue either a notice of acceptance for each corresponding temporary application or a note of deficiency, in which the employer gets a certain time to respond and correct those errors or justify or request for some further evidence that will legitimize the need for the employer's request for workers, temporary
Okay.
workers.
Okay. So you mentioned the notice of deficiency.
Yes.
So if an employer gets one of those, so you mentioned that they have to, either provide more information or do something to answer why they got this notice of deficiency. So what happens to their application? I mean, obviously if they were in a group that got processed, now they have a
Right.
notice of deficiency. Do they get moved out of line? Do they keep their spot in line? How does that?
So basically, they don't move out of line; they just get pushed aside. So then it is, for the employer and their representative to respond to the notion of deficiency so they can get back in the line, right? So
Okay.
even though the best case scenario is you as your, when I say you, I'm referring to the employer, you got picked and assigned in group A, and you have a very substantial notice of deficiency that you do not respond in time. Even though you got randomly selected for group A, if you're not forthcoming with your notice of deficiency response, that group A is meaningless.
Right.
So unless you respond to those points that Department of Labor brings forth, right, your application is kept on hold and is not being
Okay.
processed. Mind you, while all the cap is still going, right? So the
Right.
cap can close anytime. You can be in the middle of responding to the NOD, okay?
Oh
And
man.
you can get an email next day. Your lawyer says, Mr. Smith, I have something to tell you. By the way, you remember the notice of difference you're working on? We just got to notice that they just closed the cap for now. For now.
Yeah.
So then you have to have that conversation with your employer, with your representative, how to proceed forward, and you deal with that accordingly. But Group A is a great blessing by God
Yeah.
that you were picked and you were the chosen one that they will go ahead and Department of Labor will assess it, but it doesn't guarantee success. Meaning it doesn't guarantee certification of your temporary request for workers.
Gotcha.
So it's
So,
not over until it's over.
okay. So if you get a notice of deficiency, you mentioned that you need to respond timely, but it doesn't
Yes.
sound like there's a specific number of days or time frame. It's just you need to respond in time before all of the visas are given out. Is that
So
right?
it's both. So they do give you a specific time to respond.
Okay.
Okay. But I always encourage to respond before the last deadline. So to respond, because they also want to make sure that you are not, holding back on the information. And even if you do respond within time, it's being adjudicated as per the timeline that they're also held accountable to. Because yes, we have to respond on time, but Department of Labor has kind of cut out guidelines for even their officers when they're supposed to adjudicate these applications.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So once all of the available visas are exhausted during a particular cycle, what happens then to all the remaining applications? And since obviously they're not all going to get approved, what happens
Yeah.
to those?
So historically, even if you compare last year, even if the initial cap has been closed because they got an insufficient number of workers to meet the cap, what they do from time to time, like after a couple of months, once the cap is actually closed, they open up new visas in the same categories for the H2B. But they might say, okay, now we're not accepting the initial workers that might qualify for the H2B, but employer, if you do have a 9142B certified, why don't you go ahead and we're allotting more visas for 10,000 workers. So then
Okay.
you're back at the race, right? You're back, you're trying to finish the, the applications or everything like that. And they might allow it for, they may say, okay, returning workers. So previously, previous beneficiaries who had an H2B visa before. So now they're opening a 10,000 additional visas for those type of foreign national beneficiaries, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Or something that they did last year, which I'm definitely sure they'll do this year too. They opened H2B cap for nationals of Northern Triangle, right? So people from Guatemala, Honduras, from those three countries, El Salvador. If you are trying to bring foreign national beneficiaries from those three countries, right, and you do have an ET1, ETA 9142 certified, you have done your recruitment process, then you're able to get the workers who need to meet the business requirements, even though we have closed off the initial cap.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
they do give you more chances, but that with those chances also, they can't, in the middle of it, they can say, okay, now it's closed. Oh, a very easy scenario that one of my clients brought to my attention. She's like, I mean, it feels like I'm a guest, right? And the Department of Labor can open and shut the door anytime. So
Yeah.
I have to be like, I have to wait for my entry. I'm like, yeah, that's basically it. It's frustrating, but
It
you want to
sounds
put it,
frustrating.
yeah.
So I don't have any other specific questions unless there's any additional information about the lottery or just this part of the process that you want to bring out.
Yeah, I just one. I think one aspect that I want to highlight of this group assignment is usually we have seen in that the companies who are assigned A, B, and C, even sometimes D, are able to get through, meaning that they're able to get their certifications in time, they're able to get their workers so that their business, whatever requirement they might have, cleaning services or landscaping or pool companies or cabinetries, right? They're able to get workers. You might not get workers from a country that you initially thought that you wanted to, because that for those countries the cap has closed. But if you're not really specific, if your job doesn't require those kind of skills that you feel you don't need a specific person, that any person who's willing to do the job is able to do it, then I would highly encourage the employers to not get discouraged if you're assigned in D or E. Because mind you, whoever is assigned in A or B, they might not, yes, their assignment is great, but they might not get certified, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel even though you're in D or E, right, the going through the process of certification is very imperative for your next cycle, for the next year visa, right? Because you go through it, and then it's in the record, Department of Labor, that this was certified. So they take you more seriously too. So don't get discouraged. You might get workers from countries that you did not think of originally, but that the Department of Labor opened the doors to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And B, get through the certification process. Don't just give up, unless you're FGH, then it's another story. Right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, how can people get in touch with you if they have more questions or, specific
Absolutely.
questions about their situation? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So any employers or company representatives who are looking for more information regarding the group assignment or the overall process of H2B visas, they're more than welcome to call us or email us. There's our email link is right over there. Contact the client service manager and just reach out to us, and I'll be more than happy to give them a free consultation.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thanks again for your time today, Abir. We appreciate the information.
Thank you, Jim. Have a good day.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Bye.